Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome inside the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am your host here to discuss the Chargers 17-14 win over the Tennessee Titans with my guy, Tyler. As always, Alex is traveling back to the States today, so he is unavailable. The two of us were unavailable last night because of some Christmas parties. So here we are on a Monday night. Tyler, how you doing tonight, dude?
Doing very well. Can't wait to recap the game. It definitely wasn't the 30-something to 17 game that we expected, but we all did get a win. I went 4-0 in our pick, so I'm coming for you, Steven.
Yeah, I know. I'm only up by one game on Tyler after having, I think it was 4-game lead a few weeks ago. So I gotta bounce back in a big way this weekend for Christmas Eve weekend. I picked with my heart this week, and it let me down. I picked Tyler Huntley to win this week. And it did not work out for me. So I gotta go back to picking with my brain and not pick with my heart. That's what I did last year. It did work out for me. I've been picking with the brain this year, and it has been working for me. So gotta get back in the groove.
Yeah, start using your brain. I don't know why I picked the Jaguars to beat the Dallas Cowboys, but it worked. I don't know what happened to me, but I did no preparation. I figured it out all live on the air, and it worked out. So maybe I'll just wing it from here on out.
Hey man, I mean Trevor Lawrence is playing some football right now, man. I watched the replay of that this morning, and dude, Trevor Lawrence is playing some good football. As a casual fan, I can't wait to see what that looks like down there when they get some actual legitimate top tier receiving talent around him. So if you're a Chargers fan, which obviously most of you listening to the show are, you're rooting for the Titans to win that division. So I do not want to rematch with the Jacksonville Jaguars if it comes to that for the playoff seeding.
Ooh. Yeah. Well, I mean, if I had to pick, I'd rather face the Titans, that's for sure. So yeah, no Jaguars, but good for them. Who would have thought, Steven, a year ago that Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields would be the two best quarterbacks in that class? Who would have guessed?
So weird.
I know. We really ground out the tape for that one.
I know, so weird. It's almost like having 8-second pockets and playing in the independent BYU is just not translatable to the NFL at all.
No, getting thrashed by the Pac-12 one year, then bouncing back versus a bunch of nobodies, and still having a bad game against Coastal Carolina. I think, turns out not so great. And also, Trey Lance is not as good as Brock Purdy or something.
Oh man, the Niners quarterback situation it's going to be such great television in the offseason to see what they do. Because I mean, everybody was talking about Jimmy G as like a borderline MVP candidate, and like the Niners going back to the Super Bowl, and then Brock Purdy is better for them. I don't know. It's just, and Brock Purdy's like the most poised rookie Kyle Shannon's ever been around. It's wild times in San Francisco from a quarterback perspective.
Yeah, wild stuff for sure.
All right. Well, obviously have a lot to dive in today in terms of the playoff hunt. We'll talk about that. We'll obviously talk about what kind of happened within this game. Lots of positive things to take away from, in my opinion, and certainly some things that we'll talk about, from a critical lens. And then we obviously do have to mention the JC Jackson story today. So we'll talk about that, probably at the end of the show. All right, we'll start obviously diving into this game from a general sense here. Tyler, what was kind of your big takeaway from the Chargers win over the Titans yesterday?
I kind of have to go back to what I was talking about in the key matchups where the island of misfit players needed to step up and continue to play well. And I really think that they did. None of the Titans were throwing it all over the field. But of course, Michael Davis, I think 11 yards. Alohi Gilman made his presence felt the entire game. Joshua Kelly finally had double-digit touches. I know the numbers weren't great, but it was kind of circumstance and the what we're trying to do at the goal line, 3 carries or whatever it was. Braden Fehoko had probably the best game of his career playing the run versus, one of the toughest tackles or, guys to tackle in the league. Those guys continued to step up, and really it rippled beyond that. We've been waiting for this defense to not just be the stars and just be the 3 stars on defense. We're waiting for other guys to step up. And in back-to-back weeks, we have Kyle Van Noy, who's had 2 sacks, Chris Rumpf, who I honestly couldn't tell you the entire rest of the season a single play that he's made. I can tell you about ones he's missed, but that one sack, that one game-changing play really did change the game. It was a sack, which was needed. They missed a field goal, which was needed. The Chargers scored right after that, if I'm not mistaken, which was, of course, was needed. And it really just galvanized the entire stadium. The stadium was kind of, a bit nervous, a bit because it was a lot closer game than we all expected. Yeah. But that play really, really energized the sideline, the stadium, and everything. Not that like the Nasir Adderley interception didn't, but it was just really, really needed. We all got to breathe a sigh of relief. And I mean, the Chargers went on to win that game. So these guys that really aren't the superstars, whether it's this former 6th round pick who wasn't on draft boards, Alohi Gilman, the undrafted free agent Braden Fehoko, the edge 3/4 they were supposed to have, who's now been their edge 2, and Rumpf stepping up and all that. Like those guys, of course, Justin Herbert played good football as well. Like some of their stars did play well, but it really feels like they're starting to play team football the last couple of weeks. And that was really my big takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, as Riley points out, Joe Graziano had a sack as well, which was a big turning point in the game too. So, the connective tissue of this roster has just been a group that's been kind of underwhelming for the most part for most of the season. And you talk about the way that this edge rusher room outside of Khalil Mack has played. I mean, last week was the first sack of a non-Khalil Mack edge rusher since like week 3, when it was, I think, when Chris Rumpf had a sack back then or whatever it was. And it has taken a long time for that group to really get going. And, Ja'Sir Taylor has come in and played some good football. The run defense substitution thing with him and Asante is certainly something we'll have to talk about, but, he executed his job well. So, I think that's a really good point in terms of the connective tissue of this roster. Hopefully this is a sign of more things to come, because that's how good teams win games. Like, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why the Chargers have been in a bit of we're in a bit of a tough situation in the midway point of the season, when you're relying on so many of those guys to be key contributors. And now people are coming back healthy. You're not asking so much out of them. And, I think it's obviously good for the roster. My key takeaway from this, we'll certainly dive into a lot of the things here today specifically, but I think beating the Dolphins in the way that they beat the Dolphins, and then coming back and playing the Titans and beating the Titans the way that they beat the Titans, I think is really going to do some good in terms of instilling confidence around this team and around their ability to win games down the stretch and potentially win some playoff games. I think once you get into the dance, you have to be able to beat teams in a variety of ways. Like we saw, everybody, the Bengals, what they did last year is going to install a lot of hope for every single team, right? Like heading into the playoffs of like what you can potentially do. They go into Tennessee and they win a game where their quarterback gets sacked 9 times. And it's just this fist fight of a game against Derrick Henry and AJ Brown, all these guys. And then the next week they go into Kansas City and they win a shootout and they win a comeback, and then they go to the Super Bowl and they have to come back from this deficit, and it's another shootout, and it's Aaron Donald, and it's all these things. So once you get into the playoffs, you have to be able to win in a variety of ways. It's not just you can't always just rely on Justin Herbert to go out there and, go 39 of 51 or whatever it was against the Dolphins and have this, superhuman level of quarterback play. I think the Chargers are one of the few teams that can, count on, an elite quarterback, but, winning in this kind of way where you're holding the Tennessee Titans to 14 points, really 7 points for most of the game, right? and you're trying to figure out if you have a
Yeah.
run game, and you're trying to be able to manufacture offense in different ways than what we kind of would hope for. And obviously I disagree with that kind of process, but I think winning a game like this against the Titans specifically, I think will do this team good, because it's different when it's like when you're grinding out a win against the Falcons, it doesn't really do you much good outside of the win. When you're grinding out a win against a playoff team, and a team specifically like built to beat you, and built to have Derrick Henry just run all over you, I think this is going to do some good for this team, and again, kind of give them some confidence down the stretch.
Yeah, it gives us a ton of confidence. I know that the numbers that Derrick Henry had, like, they were very solid on a per play basis, but you just felt like the defense, not that they completely could stop the run. And I mean, I don't really think that the Titans ever got to a point where they're running it as much as I thought they would. And the Dolphins never really got to that point. But you feel like with the way this interior has been playing, although they just lost Graziano, so there's another body gone. Yeah. You just feel better about your chances in the postseason. The next 3 games, we really aren't going to really know how this defense is. I think they're just going to play some solid football, and they're just more talented and better than Baker Mayfield, Matt Ryan, Russell Wilson, if he even plays at that point. I think he will, but it's not like a murderer's row of quarterbacks is coming up. So we won't really know, but at least you can feel like you said, just build some confidence in your team, build some confidence in yourselves as a defense. You obviously trust your special teams. Cameron Dicker with his 3rd game-winning field goal of the year, which is ridiculous. And the offense can maybe figure some things out. It's a bummer that the offense has had this time to kind of try different things, potentially because the defense is holding it together, and they haven't been able to capitalize on those things. But I guess they did go 2 for 2 in the red zone. But it really is nice to see that Justin Herbert could play a fine game. I think he played a fine game that had several outstanding moments to it, which you could call it maybe a good game because of that. It really wasn't his best, and I've only watched it live, and the All-22 hasn't come out, but there are moments where, this guy kind of misses that throw, this guy misses that catch, this guy drops that ball. But it didn't matter in the end because the Chargers had a complete team effort around them, and they were able to win, which is huge. We've been waiting for Justin Herbert to not have to throw it and be perfect on 55 dropbacks just to win by 3 points in the end. They were able to. They still had to drop back like crazy, but they didn't have to be perfect. Herbert didn't have to be perfect, and that's just it's wonderful to see.
Yeah, I feel like watching the broadcast that he was a little off at certain points, specifically in the second quarter and the third quarter. So I'm very curious to see what the film shows here, because there's been a lot of media members who already have access to the film that are saying that Herbert played a fantastic game again, and this is something that is kind of continued. Dan Orlovsky even went as far to say that this was the best game he's watched from Herbert all season on tape, which I feel like that's probably going to be hard for me to think that's the outcome when I watch it. I know. So I don't know. I mean, the interception was the second interception was tough. I think that was one of a rare very bad decision from Justin Herbert. The first interception, that's just like a freak accident. Unfortunately, it's just an incredible play from Arjun McCreary, which just does not happen very often. So I agree, man. I think again, it's different when a win like this happens against a bad team. When a win like this happens against the Titans, who's been a perennial playoff team, who what they're about with Derrick Henry, and that even though they don't necessarily have like AJ Brown and all these guys strolling through, that this is going to be a fist fight of a game, and they made it that way, and the Chargers were still able to come out on top. So I think from a culture standpoint, from a confidence standpoint, this is a win that's going to be huge for this team. Really quickly, Joe Graziano is injured. I see some people asking about him in the chat. Brandon Staley said he did injure his groin. It's not considered a long-term injury in terms of how Joey Bosa's was, but he is going to miss some time. I don't think he needs surgery, which is good news for him, but I almost don't expect him to play the rest of the season. Probably place him on IR and kind of figure out where they're at after that. So it sucks. I mean, Joe Graziano is really starting to play well. Obviously, he had the sack yesterday, had some good run stops the week before that. So, another defensive line body down, but we'll see what they do if they want to bring up Chris Hinton, who we haven't really seen much of. Obviously didn't play yesterday because Sebastian Joseph Day did play. That's the next man up in terms of on the roster. Otherwise, we'll see if they kind of go look for a veteran again or something like that if somebody gets cut or something like that.
I guess they'll have to. Is Andrew Brown free? I mean, at some point, we're going to have to cycle back to some old familiar friends at this point.
I believe Andrew Brown, last time I checked, is on the practice squad for the Cardinals. So they could bring Andrew Brown back. They would have to sign him to the active roster, but that is an option. Don't know where Eric Banks is at. Don't know
I don't
if that's
care
the
where
decision.
He's at either. Yeah. What are you doing to me?
People have asked me about Forrest Merrill. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he tore his pec in training camp.
Yeah, he's out for the season.
Yeah, he's out for the season. I wanted to make sure I was right there, but we'll see if anybody gets cut practice squad wise. But they will have to make some kind of other addition again along the defensive line. And it's crazy. Like I keep seeing people talk about the defensive line. It still is not even close to the worst position group on the team. Like even after all of these injuries, they're still playing better than the linebacker group, in my opinion. They're still playing better than the safety group outside of Derwin James, in my opinion. So the defensive line, Jay Rogers, I think are really doing a fantastic job this year.
Yeah, no, they really, really are. Although I think the reason that they've lost all these players and got better is because their DT7 is the one that should have been DT3 to begin with. But whatever. By the way, big shout out on that minor segue. Thank you to the Fajoko family for this gift. We could open it live. I don't know if the chat is bored, wants us to do that. We're guessing it's either Legos or macadamia nuts. I don't know what it is, but I really appreciate the gift. So thank you. Mele Kaliki Maka.
There you go. Well done. All seriousness, the Focos they're great people, man. They have some great interactions with people on Twitter. So, it's been a pleasure to see them really embrace the fan base like they have. All right, we'll dive into some specifics here in terms of the game. The place that I want to start this is something that Brandon Staley has highlighted. The Chargers' third down defense no longer a huge issue apparently. So. 3 weeks in a row, the Chargers have allowed 30% or less on third down conversions. This week against the Tennessee Titans, the Titans converted 3 of their 11 third down opportunities. And again, Derrick Henry had himself a pretty good day, but the key there for the Chargers is that they were able to stay ahead of the sticks. So I believe according to True Media, their average third down distance was 8.5 yards. Which I think really allowed the Chargers defense and specifically the pass rush to get after Ryan Tannehill. Obviously hobbled and did not have his usual mobility after injuring his ankle, which, respect the heck out of Tannehill for coming back in that
Absolutely.
Instance. But, this game was really set up for the Chargers pass rush to have itself their most productive day of the season. That's what happened. And I think the early down run defense was really the key there in terms of allowing Chris Rumph, Kyle Van Noy, Khalil Mack to have those opportunities to get after Ryan Tannehill.
It's been huge. The way that this interior has played. I mean, Sebastian Joseph Day came back and boom, you just felt it's just different. There's a reason that he was paid as he was. There's a reason he was and has been one of the best run defenders in the league. And you saw that immediately. Braden Fajoko, I don't know why he's only credited with one run stop on Pro Football Focus. But those two guys were doing such great work on the interior. And really just over the last few weeks, it's been Morgan Fox as well. But it's just, they're doing so much better. And it's not a coincidence that over the same time span that Braden Fajoko has been, playing, and Murray's also been on the field because I think there was one game he played 9 snaps or whatever. It's the best 4-game stretch of Kenneth Murray's career in terms of just pure run stops, the raw number there. I don't know about the run stop rate because I'm not doing that math for his entire career, different 4-game spots, but he's got 3 each, an average of 3 the last 4 games, 3, a total of 12 the last 4 games. It's not a coincidence that the guys up front are playing well and they're allowing the linebackers to play well and the safeties are playing well and Lohi Gilman's coming up to make tackles. Guys are just playing better and more free because the guys up front are doing their jobs. And, whether that's Morgan Fox or Sebastian Joseph Day returning or Braden Fajoko stepping up, these guys up front are doing such a good job. And they really again, the numbers for Derrick Henry aren't great, but that's mostly outside. And then I believe one run that went 13 yards off the left guard. Otherwise, there wasn't much for him to do. Now, they also didn't really feed him, so I don't know if he is a player that gets better the more you feed him, because I think he had like 9 carries going into mid third quarter, but they would feed him. They would try to give him the ball, and he'd get 2 yards or a loss. I mean, it was such an impressive interior defensive line performance for them. And like you said, like it allowed the rest of the defense, to play like 3rd and 8. Or some guys would even draw like a holding penalty, and it would be 2nd and 20, 1st and 20, or whatever. Like the guys up front were doing such a great job. And then the other contributors that we've been waiting for stepped up. I mean, Graziano, Kyle Van Noy, Chris Rumpf, Drew Tranquil, who has been, all these guys had sacks, and it was huge. And if they can do that, it just changes the outlook of the entire defense. Again, we've seen them in 3rd and 16, or was it 3rd and whatever against the Chiefs, where sometimes it just wouldn't matter and they would give it up. But now you also have the secondary playing as well as it has. I'm not saying it's the most dynamic defense right now. I think it's being held together by glue and duct tape, but it's working, and guys are playing sound. And we're just at this point in the season, again, it's not the defense that we wanted to see. It's not even the players that we wanted out there, because these guys are coming back, but the scheme is sound. Whether you want to say it's simplified or just guys are playing better, whatever, but they're playing sound. So everything up front is starting to win. You have a 3-4, in theory, defense that's actually playing like a strong 3-4, where the 3 guys up front are doing their jobs and everyone else behind them is playing good football. It's really, really great to see that. Again, granted, Tua didn't play a great game and Tannehill had 1 useful foot, but it's still good to see that these guys are doing their jobs and playing really sound football.
Yeah, and Fehoko mentioned that with Chris Harry afterwards, that like playing a team like Tennessee, it's going to make you test your patience and make sure that you're always playing sound football. And the first Titans touchdown drive was not a good drive for them. That definitely was a Derrick Henry drive. I think he literally had every yard on that drive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, I thought they were really just connected, and every single play you could really feel it. And most of Derrick Henry's big runs were to the edge. Like if that's been the constant throughout the whole season for the Chargers,
right,
is that the big runs are not up the middle. The big runs are all attacking the edges and getting one-on-ones that way. So, one thing that I think has certainly helped this defense, whether it's Sebastian being willing to do this or whether this is a specific scheme thing because of Braden Fehoko, early on in the season, we didn't really see Sebastian Joseph Day moving around a lot in terms of his unique alignment. For the most part, when him and Austin Johnson were healthy, it was Sebastian Joseph Day is the nose, Austin Johnson is a 3-4 tech, and then whoever the pass rusher was, Morgan Fox, Jerry Tillery, whoever that was. Now with Fehoko on the line, he's taking basically the majority of his snaps at the nose, and then Sebastian Joseph Day is able to move a little bit more around the defense. We've seen him take some snaps as a 5 tech, edge rusher, if you will. We've seen him as a 3 tech, and pretty remarkable day. He didn't practice in full all week. He was a true game time decision. He comes in and he has 5 run stops in his first game back. So, his presence and his versatility is finally, I think, being shown because of Fehoko being able to take a lot of snaps from the nose, because that's not really what Austin Johnson does. I don't think that's what Otito Ogbonia does, at least not yet.
Not yet.
So Fehoko being able to play the nose is allowing Sebastian to move around a little bit more. And I think that really has made a big difference. Obviously, we didn't see that last week from the Dolphins because he didn't play. But even against the Raiders and the week before that against the Chiefs and against the Niners, like we've seen Sebastian being able to move around, I think is really helping this defense against the run.
Yeah, it's a huge plus multiplier. It's crazy that a nose tackle that, we really liked, but I never really considered it outside of maybe freeing up linebackers. But as you pointed out, and you caught this and I didn't, Sebastian Joseph Day, if he can move around, I know they're trying to experiment with Khalil Mack playing over some guards as well. I am sure once Joey Bosa comes back, they will definitely play Joey Bosa over some guards as well. If that's the plus multiplier that helps out this defense, great. And frankly, whatever it is, it's working. And if that means that's what Fajoko's role is, that's what Sebastian Joseph Day's new role is, great. You stick with that. Yeah,
absolutely. What was your big takeaway from the defense outside of kind of the run defense and how they played against Derrick Henry?
It's tough to say because they didn't exactly throw it. I think the receivers had all of 40 yards on the day. So it was mostly tight ends and running backs getting the receiving yards. So I mean, it slightly ties into the JC thing today, but I do think Michael Davis is irreplaceable at this point. I was surprised very early on to see them pull Asante Samuel Jr. for Jaw Taylor, who I didn't want to start talking about this because there was no reason to. But after the Dolphins game and watching him play against the Dolphins, I was worried about some of the angles he was taking. So I would disagree with the idea that based on the defensive film, that he was a guy that would be an upgrade over Asante Samuel Jr., who isn't a guy who would go out and tackle. Like, I don't expect him to go out and blow up Derrick Henry, but I do think at several points in the year that Asante Samuel Jr., namely against like the Texans, for example, has shown that he's a good tackler. So I understand, I guess, what Staley was trying to do, but I was very surprised like that you would take Asante Samuel Jr. off the field. It's not like, rotating out Jerry Tillery when it comes time to play the run, because Jerry Tillery also can't play the pass really all that much either, unless he's playing the Chargers for about a half. Asante Samuel Jr. is a really good cornerback who had a great game against the Dolphins. The idea of switching him and rotating him out with Jaw Taylor is surprising. And I do think if they try that again, that a smart offensive coordinator is going to try to take advantage of it. I'm surprised that they didn't. I believe there was one-on-one that they tried against Jaw Taylor, and the player did get 10 yards or whatever. But I mean, it worked, I guess, but I also don't think he was tested either. So we'll see what they do moving forward. But I don't really agree with taking Asante Samuel Jr. off the field. But that is your future corner one potentially, and I just don't agree with this idea that like we'll put Jaw Taylor out there in base package. I don't know. It's hard to I get why they did it, but it's hard to also justify, if that makes sense.
No, I totally get it. Just for the record, Michael Davis targeted 4 times, Asante Samuel twice, Jaw Taylor twice, Bryce Callahan once. So yeah, not a busy coverage day by any means for the cornerbacks. The Jaw Taylor thing, I think in theory I would understand more if they had tried to play him over Bryce Callahan, because to me it's like,
yes,
Brandon Staley says that he wants to get a bigger body out there at corner, but Bryce Callahan is smaller than Asante Samuel Jr., and he was still out there in obviously not in base packages, but I understand wanting to get Jaw Taylor some snaps against the run. I do think he is a better run defender than Asante and Bryce Callahan. There were certainly some concerning angles and things like that, but I think that is something that he will excel at later on in his career, is being a run defender. So it was an interesting thing. Asante is not, I don't think he's a weak run defender by any means. Like, we've seen him make some really crucial tackles. I felt like, obviously it was a little bit different, but I felt like it was almost like the Tavon Campbell, Michael Davis thing against like the Ravens last year.
Yeah.
When randomly like Tavon Campbell was like getting these snaps on the outside, and it was like, what is happening here? But, obviously Brandon Staley explained it afterwards. The process is just a little bit confusing there. In terms of Michael Davis, man, Michael Davis is playing fantastic. Again, have not watched the film yet, specifically for this game. Don't know if we'll see a ton. He did have the one pass breakup. And since becoming the starter against the Falcons, Michael Davis actually leads the league in forced incompletions and pass breakups among all cornerbacks in the league. So he's playing some incredible football right now. And it's not just that he's like having these good pass breakups and things like that. Like, he legitimately was clamping Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle whenever he was given the chance last week. Obviously Trent Sherford as well. He's playing so much more consistent than really I think he ever has. Like, I thought in 2020 playing in Gus's scheme, like, we saw a lot more like flashy potential out of him. And I think he had 4 picks that year. So we're not seeing that. But just from a down to down perspective, I've been so impressed with the way that he has played this year. And, obviously the JC news today and JC's injury, Michael Davis cannot be cut. Like, you cannot afford to cut this kind of player, especially in this division, with Patrick Mahomes, and, we'll see what happens with the other 2 teams, but AFC in general, like if you go look up the playoff teams right now, all of them have elite quarterbacks except for the Titans with Ryan Tannehill, who's a good quarterback. So Michael Davis has made himself essential, and I think that's everything that we wanted to see out of this situation, where he wasn't going to be handed like the starting role, and he cut out the off-field distractions from his personal life, and he's really bounced back and has had an exceptional season for this team. And frankly, I don't think that they do not beat the Dolphins without Michael Davis playing this way, and they do not make it a game against the Chiefs with him playing this way. So Michael Davis deserves a ton of flowers because he's playing fantastic recently.
Yeah, I believe since the Denver game, granted it was a, again, half game, but I believe he's allowed fewer yards than Pat Surtain over the same time span. And if you take away that 60-yard touchdown to Hill, which you can or you can't, it's up to you, because technically he did get beat. But if you want to take that away, it's about the same amount of yards allowed over that same time span as like a Sauce Gardner. Not that Michael Davis is shadowing the number one and he's been, the elite number one following the number one, but I mean, he's playing legitimate football. And it's great that you pulled up that stat of him having that many forced incompletions and passes broken up, because one of the reasons in training camp we were kind of seeing that slip away, that job slip away from him. Granted, we kind of figured it was Asante Samuel Jr.'s, is because he wasn't getting his hands on the football. Like, even though Michael Davis was playing some decent football, well, he was also kind of getting beat more than some of the other guys, but he wasn't getting those interceptions. He wasn't forcing pass breakups. And then at some point, he just for whatever reason, there was 1 week where he got an interception. He got another one in like about the same few days of practice, and then there was a point where he was almost like the start over Asante Samuel Jr., technically heading into the first game, as Michael Davis was the starter in camp, next to JC Jackson. Of course, it ended up being Asante Samuel Jr., but something clicked for him, and I don't really know what it was, but something clicked for him. And really, ever since he got this starting job in separate halves than as the actual starter, I mean, like I said, if you told me there's a guy making $9 million and we have him again next year, and he's a guy who's familiar with the scheme, playing well in the scheme, is obviously talented, has great attributes, and is giving you, less yards allowed than Pat Surtain, like, I'll take that any day. And I fully am for a 1-year extension for Michael Davis, even though it's kind of like an extension. I'm all for it. I mean, the guy is playing outstanding football. Again, was 11 yards allowed against the Titans. Granted, again, not the greatest situation because Tannehill's hurt. Their line's not great, and the receivers they're playing aren't that great, but still, like, 11 yards. It would have been 14 against the Dolphins. It would have been 16 the week before. I mean, just outstanding football. This stretch that he's on, and Asante Samuel Jr. as well is playing great, but the stretch that he's on is really the best corner play we've had since Casey Hayward's prime. We really, I mean, this is kind of what we hoped that JC Jackson would be, to be completely honest. And we're getting him for $7-8 million less per year.
Yeah, I mean, the way that he is playing just deserves so much recognition. Thank you. There we go.
Sure.
But yeah, he is somebody that I think you have to consider extending, and I think obviously that gives the Chargers some cap space, and I think he also deserves it, man. Like, I think he's earning that right to be on the team longer 100%. And play. I've really enjoyed how they're asking him to press more, which is not really something he did a whole lot with Gus Bradley. Obviously, it's a lot of off coverage, lots of zone, and allows him to kind of read and react and run. So they're really playing to his strengths, and he's showing a lot of development. So I'm a fan of what he's been doing, and he deserves a lot of credit, as Asma points out in the chat. Maybe signing JC Jackson made him raise his game. That's certainly possible. That's something that Ronaldo Hill talked about in the offseason, was adding like legitimate competition, and bringing in Bryce Callahan and JC Jackson in practices makes everybody raise their game in practice. So that's certainly possible. Like I said, Michael Davis has talked about cutting out his off-field distractions from his personal life. I'm sure that's helped. And he's, second year in the system, second year practicing in this kind of structure. So, I think he's playing well. Somebody else who I think deserves a shout out, man, for the way that they played, Drew Tranquil has just been, I don't think I think they're asking him a little bit to do a little bit too much, but I mean, we've seen him without Derwin really kind of step up, be a leader on this team. He's setting career highs in tackles and sacks, and he's doing these great things in coverage. Like, watching the film back against the Dolphins game was crazy. You see him go from line of scrimmage to being the deep defender in pass coverage, guarding the post, was insane. And then this week, you talk about different responsibilities, man. Being the Tampa 2 linebacker 1 week against the Dolphins, to trying to stop Derrick Henry and being the focal point of your defense against Derrick Henry, and excelling in both of those things. I think Drew also deserves a lot of recognition. I don't think he's a true like linebacker one. Like I don't think he's like a Fred Warner kind of player, but he's somebody just who's really, really solid. Who I think should absolutely be brought back as well, just because I think he stabilizes that position, and I think he's playing fantastic recently.
Unbelievable football. Again, like you said, maybe not top 3 linebacker in the league, and I think I would say about as much as Kaiser White was doing last year. So again, I hope that doesn't mean that they let him go.
Hopefully, we learn our lesson there.
Oh gosh, I can't. I don't need to see. Anyway, I'm honestly surprised at Drew Tranquil. But the potential wasn't there. But I really just didn't know that he had this in him. And we've seen like little flashes against Kansas City last year. There was a blitz that he had where he bull rushed a guard and either got a sack or freed up Joey Bosa or whatever it was. And you started to kind of see these things. Like there's been little pieces of it, but we never seen him put it together, be healthy, and play this well. I don't know what got into him, to be completely honest. But I really don't know what they look like at linebacker without him on the field. And he's consistently changing the game with a couple of plays. I would say maybe not as much responsibility as a Derwin James, and certainly not as good of a player as Derwin James. But if you wanted to talk about changing the game with a couple of plays, he's doing it as much as Derwin James has. And we're really, really fortunate to have him, and I hope he sticks around.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We'll wrap up the defensive conversation here. I keep on getting this question. Brandon Staley has gotten this question. What are your expectations for this defense when Derwin James does come back? Because for whatever reason, there's this narrative out there that the defense is better without Derwin James. Like, what's going on there? So, what are your expectations when Derwin comes back for this unit?
That they're going to be even better. I don't think there's any. I understand why the simplified scheme might be better for the Chargers. And sure, let's just say it's that. But I think the idea that the defense is better, I don't think is necessarily just because it's not. It's not because Derwin James is off the field. Let's just start with that. I think it's just a really good combination of, excuse me, Tua not playing so hot, Tannehill having a busted ankle. Both the lines they've faced the last 2 weeks are not good offensive lines, or they've been hurt, and definitely not good offensive lines. The interior defensive linemen are playing really well. The corners are playing really well. Alohi Gilman has stepped up way big. So I don't think it's necessarily that, we're so reliant on Derwin James, so it's so complex. The defense isn't great. I actually think that just compared to what we saw at the beginning of the year, I just think the overall defense, they're starting to understand their responsibilities, and or they have new guys that are playing their scheme and responsibilities a lot better. So Derwin James will make this team 100% better. Like, you tell me which player, I guess Drew Tranquil, but runs and covers DeAndre Hopkins and picks him off on 4th down, and then forces a fumble the other down. You're not going to have anybody like that on this defense, and they are better with him on the field. It's just been like a very unique 2-game sample size, but I don't think the teams like did you do this against Kansas City? And sure, maybe I can start having a discussion with you, but I just don't think, not that the Dolphins are any pushover by any means. They're a good offense, but I just think Tua played a very piss poor kind of game, and the lines they've been facing aren't that great. So let's hold off for a bit on saying that it's Derwin James. That's the issue.
Yeah, I think with Derwin out there, you obviously see a better performance, right? I think he's somebody that makes those game-changing plays, and I think the way that they performed against the Dolphins was it was a game plan thing. Like, it was Brandon Staley, having that signature game plan game that we have all been waiting for, and it just clicked for whatever reason. That was a back against the wall combination. Opponent, prime time, for whatever reason. I think it just kind of clicked. And I think with Derwin James out there would have been even better. So I'm excited. I think this week against the Colts is going to be a unique test for them. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor is not playing this week, high ankle sprain himself. But the Colts are going to run the shit out of the ball. Like, they know what they are, and they know that running the football is going to be, their way to play that game. So it's going to be a very similar matchup to this week. They're going to have to be, assignment sound all game long. Then we'll see what happens with Baker Mayfield. Obviously, he has a game tonight, and then the Broncos are different as well. So this is really an opportunity for this defense to get Derwin back, get Joey Bosa back potentially against the Rams. It sounds like that's kind of more of the realistic possibility, and then be able to be playing their best football right into the playoffs, which I think is huge because you're talking about potential matchups with Joe Burrow and the Bengals, or Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, or Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Like they're going to have like a very tough matchup in terms of the defense, and them finding their stride is huge.
Yes, 100%. And I hope the offense, which I'm sure we'll talk about next, I hope they follow suit as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, Jonathan Taylor is likely out for the season. He has a high ankle sprain. The Colts have nothing to play for. I'd be pretty surprised if Jonathan Taylor sees the field again. All right, let's have that offensive conversation. Do we want to start with the positive stuff from the offense or the negative stuff from the offense?
Go negative.
All right. So I have become so frustrated by the third quarter offense because it's like the instant the third quarter ends.
Yeah.
Everything is like back to normal.
Yeah.
We're doing play action. We're taking shots. We're getting Herbert out of the pocket. I don't understand what is happening in these meeting rooms and what the plan is in the third quarter, because it makes no sense to me. And there's certainly some mistakes by the players, some execution mistakes that are kind of derailing these drives. But the Chargers have, a 3rd and 8 play, and they run a swing pass to Austin Eckler, and he gets tackled for 4 yards. Actually, I think it was Joshua Kelly. And I'm like, what? It's 3rd and 8, and you're running a 4-yard pass. Like the process of which that they are playing in the third quarter makes no sense to me. And it's just like mind-boggling to me to watch them instantly flip the switch in the fourth quarter and go, hey, let's do some play action. Let's get Justin Herbert out on the move. And it works. And you get a touchdown drive. Like literally right after the third quarter ends, they get a touchdown drive because they do the things that work. And then in the third quarter, it's like, all right, here's our traditional dropbacks. It makes no sense to me what they are doing in the third quarter. And right now, that is the most frustrating thing watching this offense play.
Yeah, I would agree. And I knew it too, just sitting there in the stands. Like, I bet you as soon as the third quarter ends, we're going to score a touchdown. Lo and behold, it's like, oh, here we go. Like,
it was instant, dude. It was right after the quarter ended. Yeah, it goes back to normal, and the offense is fine.
Yeah, I don't understand. It just seems to be that the offense also makes critical errors in the third quarter. I think Herbert's pick might have been in the third quarter.
It was,
could be wrong. I don't know. Like, this team just seems to brain fart in the third quarter. It just, something is off. And just looking at it, and I think everyone knows this, but the Chargers at some point, their players, Corey Linsley is the only player on this entire offense who can go an entire game without literally making a single mistake. And that, I'm including Justin Herbert. Like, I don't think Herbert even can. Corey Linsley is probably the only player, maybe Rashawn Slater if he's back, who can go 100 snaps without having one issue, one critical error. It's so tough for this offense to move, whether it is the play calling, execution, whatever, blocking. They're asking this team to do 12 play drives, 10 play drives. And at some point, these guys, like, somebody's going to make a mistake. Herbert will at some point. Like, his turnover worthy play rate is like 1 every 100 plays. Well, if every game you're running 80 of those, potentially at some point, like, you're going to have, he's going to make a mistake. Zion Johnson's pass blocking efficiency is 97.1, but there's always that one mistake because him and Matt Filer have blocked more true pass sets than any two players in the NFL this season. They are asking so much out of their offensive line, out of Herbert, the receivers, the tight ends. Now, the tight ends have been great, but like, at some point, if you're running so many plays, these guys are 50 dropbacks, 45 dropbacks, 50 dropbacks, 55 dropbacks. Like, at some point, somebody's going to make a mistake, and it seems they just come together in the third quarter. I don't know why. So they need to find some way. Again, this is no duh, and everyone listening already knows this, but they need to find some way to get something, some sort of chunk, or just roll with play action, and that's all you're doing. If you want to get your 10 yards a pop, cool. Stick with the play action. I know you can't run that every time, but stick with it. And that was the crazy thing, watching them try to do a drop back. I think, like, they ran play action. I swear the first normal drop back they had was a sack. and then they like run, play action, play action, play. It's like, how? I don't understand what happens to this offense, but they're putting so much pressure on these players. A rookie like Zion Johnson, who's again second most true pass sets in the league as a rookie, playing a different spot than he was used to. That's asking way too much of your quarterback, your line that hasn't really gelled yet together because of all these injuries, the receivers that are banged up. It's just asking way too much of this offense. It's so frustrating to watch them just get 5 and 5 and 4 and 3 and 4 and 5. Like, I understand you have to be efficient at some point. At some point, you do need to extend drives and you do need to have long drives, but like it's just making it so difficult for this offense. And for some reason in the third quarter, that's when everything blows up. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's really funny to me, like, because the way that they play offense is what somebody like Brandon Staley wants opposing offenses to do.
Right.
Like the way that the Chargers play offense is exactly the way that Brandon Staley has built his defense. And there's certainly some player limitations that we're talking about. Obviously, not having Rashawn Slater.
Sure,
they don't have a deep threat because they never replaced Jalen Guyton. Like that certainly does not help. And Brandon Staley was talking about today, like, well, the Titans were playing a lot of cover 2 man, and they did. And that's a coverage that this team does not play well against because they don't have a speed threat and because they don't have outside of Keenan, they don't have an elite separator against press man coverage. And it just makes things so much harder. But at the same time, you watch this team consistently get into third down situations. And the plan is always like, okay, Keenan, go be great. Or, okay, Austin Eckler, go break a tackle here and there. And that doesn't always work. And you're like, you're asking, like you said, you summed it up perfectly. You're asking your guys to make so many plays consistently at high level that sometimes it's not going to happen. I don't think that Justin Herbert had his best day. I don't think Austin Eckler had his best day. I thought Keenan Allen was good. I don't think Mike Williams was consistently good for this team yesterday. You know, him getting out muscled by Roger McCreary a couple of times was not great. But that's what you're doing because you're asking them to just go out there for 90 snaps in a game every single week. So it's just frustrating. There are so few easy buttons within this offense right now that Joe Lombardi is pushing
to say it.
That it just makes things so much harder. And you know, we see what this team is, what Justin Herbert specifically is doing in terms of the play action stuff, in terms of the rollout stuff. I mean, he's like, his completion percentage over expected when he's moving out of the pocket is like far and away better than whoever is second. I forget the specific numbers, but he's just being so incredibly explosive and efficient outside of the pocket. And it's like they run 2-3 bootlegs a game. It's so frustrating to watch them limit the passing game. And it's like Brandon Staley said today, they knew that the Titans were going to come out in this too high shell look and make the Chargers kind of try and dink and dunk. It's like, okay, why are you not manufacturing explosives at a higher rate then? Is that not your plan as opposed to throwing these 6-yard passes and establishing the run, which I certainly was. I wanted them to run the football more. Absolutely. I wanted them to be more balanced, but it's just it's not one or the other. Like, you don't have to run the football and not be explosive. You can do both things.
Yeah. Well, that's what the end arounds are for. Which,
oh my gosh,
dude, I don't know how, because it's not like they run it once a game and so you're like, okay, like we'll watch the film. They just like, I don't know, for whatever reason, either it's pure coincidence and luck or they know it's coming. It is like a catastrophe every time they run a reverse and end around with DeAndre Carter. Now they did have more success with it with Andre Roberts. The one time they did it last year with Jalen Guyton, I believe both those players are faster. They were able to run around that free edge defender, but still, like, I don't know what it is, because it's not like the Chargers run it all the time. Those plays are killing them. I mean, how do you lose 10? How do you lose 10 yards on an end around or whatever it was? It's just, ugh. Oh, I see my mom sent a super chat. Thank you, Mom.
There you go. I like the comments right after that from the other people, Kelsey and Tara, watching. Appreciate you guys.
We're all
what sucks about the end around too is that in that specific instance, they had it set up perfectly. Like, they had 3 guys out there and there was a lot of space to run. All Carter has to do is make that one guy miss, and he's not able to do it. So I don't understand what it is. Like, that was something I was really excited about for Carter, was his ability to come in and do that kind of stuff, but it's just never worked for them all season. Like, their misdirection plays do not work at all. And that's the screen game. Their screen game is so consistently bad. It's so frustrating.
Bad.
They threw 4 screens yesterday and got 3 yards out of them. 3 yards on screen passes, dude. Like, do you know how freaking hard that is in the NFL? Like, I understand, like, it's NFL defenses and stuff like that, but their misdirection stuff is just so inefficient.
Really?
Yes. According to PFF, I'm looking at it literally right now. 4 screens. I'm sorry, 9 yards. 9 yards out of 4
We did it. Hey, that's
they
better
didn't even
than a
get
loss
one
of
first
10.
down total combined.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh.
I did think it was funny. Like, they talked all week about running the football, and all of their red zone plays were run attempts. They didn't pass the ball a single time in the red zone.
Yeah. No, they were like, okay, we're gonna run it. And they got their, 3 yards. That play by Austin Eckler, man, that play in the red zone to get them that 1st and 4, 3, whatever it was on our side. We're watching, and man, like this guy, I don't know how he does it, but outstanding football from him. But I'm glad that they leaned into, like, okay, positives. I'm glad that they leaned into the run game. I'm glad that they did go 2 for 2 in the red zone. I think that's fantastic. Like, they did lean into some things that we were hoping for. And even though it wasn't completely sexy, it did work in the red zone. So that is a positive. That is good for potentially playoff football moving forward. I just wish that, the other yards between the 20 and 20, that they were just a little bit better, or a lot better, I should say.
Yeah. This was a sneaky, really good performance from Austin Eckler. 12 carries, 58 yards. It's not anything, sexy, like 4.8 yards per carry. But he had 3.4 yards after contact per attempt. And he forced 8 missed tackles, and he had 2 explosive runs of 10 plus yards. So, I've been kind of critical of the way that Austin Eckler has been playing, and at least in terms of on the ground. But this was a really good performance from him. He obviously had the shoulder injury. Sounds like he avoided any major damage there, which thank God for that. But this was a good game from Austin Eckler. It wasn't a perfect game run blocking wise, but I thought Austin Eckler was consistently forcing missed tackles, and obviously getting explosive runs 2 times as well is super important for this team. Not a super efficient day from Joshua Kelly. I was excited to see him get that 1 touchdown, but I think that that was kind of a big confidence builder for him too.
Yeah, I would like to see, rewatching the film, what their distribution for how Kelly was involved looks like. If he's on the field, I believe he had 1 target that he was sort of half dropped, half missed. He had another catch for 5 or 7 yards or whatever it was. But I'm curious with the looks when he's on the field, what they do with Joshua Kelly. I felt like it was very balanced when they played the Browns. I don't know if it felt like it was that as much against the Titans, but I'll have to rewatch and see. I don't want it to be like a tell where, like, Kalen Ballage, when Anthony Lynn was the coach, never got a target, like ever. He was never, ever catching a pass every time he was on the field. And I don't think it's that extreme with Joshua Kelly, but I hope they do keep it balanced because, Austin Eckler can do one of at least 2 or 3 things. Kelly can do that as well, not to the same extent, but just try to get more looks out there so it's not so obvious that it's a run play when he's on the field.
Yeah. So Kelly did have 2 targets. He did catch one of them. One of them went like right through his hands, but so balance, I guess. 10 carries for Joshua Kelly, which I think for me is like the key thing there, because I think you do need to see him start, taking on a larger role in that regard, but only 24 yards. He did have a lot of short yardage situations, so he, not a ton of opportunities for him to get explosive runs. I think he had like 4 attempts within the 10-yard line alone. So again, not a crazy efficient day from Joshua Kelly, but I thought, the touchdown was huge, made some good plays and pass protection as well. So the run game I thought was a little inefficient at times, but I think they can build on this performance because the Titans, even still with all of their injuries, I think we're like the second best team in terms of run defense in the league. So certainly something I think should get a little bit easier over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I would certainly hope so. A lot of, like, they were trying to do things that we wanted to see them do. There was some play action. They were trying to run the ball more. All great. It just, they need to put it all together, I guess.
All right, I'm responding to a comment. Looks like we got a little bit of a potential high school graduation for me going on in the chat, or reunion, I should say, not graduation. Yeah. So in terms of other positives, I do want to shout out Trey Pipkins, man, because I thought that he had been playing some really good football before he got injured, and he comes back this week. Zero pressure is allowed in this matchup. Made some crucial blocks in the run game. People keep on talking about the right tackle position, man, and I think Trey Pipkins is that guy. 6 games that he has started and finished healthy, he's allowed 6 total pressures, 0 sacks, and the team has absolutely needed him. It is such a big difference going from above average Trey Pipkins to tomato can, dumpster fire, Foster Sherrill. That's a little bit mean, but the point still stands. Like, they are able to do so many. Sorry. They're able to do so many more things because Trey Pipkins is actually a functional above average tackle for them. And, you know, he deserves a lot of credit for obviously working his butt off with Duke in the offseason. He deserves a lot of credit for battling through this MCL injury. You know, even with the MCL injury, he's still top 25 in pass blocking efficiency among all offensive tackles in the league. He's having a fantastic season. I thought yesterday, you know, Danico Autry didn't play in this game. The Titans are a different pressure unit again, you know, without Danico Autry. But, you know, with Trey Pipkins in there, they're really able to shift their blocking scheme towards helping Jamari Sawyer. And, you know, Pipkins was on an island, I felt like, pretty much the whole game. You know, we'll see if that happens in the All-22. But watching the broadcast, you could tell that there was just a different level of trust with Pipkins in there, and he's able to actually, you know, function within the offense. So I thought Trey Pipkins played a fantastic game and deserves a shout out for tonight.
Yeah, there wasn't that immediate pressure from someone who couldn't sustain a block because they were doing, you know, moving the pocket this way or that way, or just regular dropbacks couldn't sustain the block. It was so nice to have Trey Pipkins out there. Not like the greatest edge rusher group you'd be facing. Certainly no, you know, Nick Bosa, no Jalen Phillips out there. But hey, like, if Pipkins can be out there, and it seems like they did, as much as it's been a struggle watching Foster Sherrill, it does seem like Pipkins is healthy and good to go moving forward, as long as there's no setbacks, of course, which is huge. I mean, the team really needed him back, and it is really nice to see him back. I wish they had a better offensive output with the returns of the guys that they had, but at least, you know, Pipkins is doing his job. And as far as next year is concerned, it's tough to say where the priority is. I don't know if you can immediately ditch Bryce Callahan or Morgan Fox. Obviously, Drew Tranquill. You'll now have to account for paying for Michael Davis. No idea what to do with JC, but I mean, Trey Pipkins kind of has to be back. There's so many needs that the Chargers would have. Maybe it's a receiver. Maybe it's an edge rusher. Maybe it's a freaking tight end. I don't know. Yeah. But there's so many other things you could look for in the first round that I don't really know if you want to burn a first rounder on someone if you have Trey Pipkins there, which is hilarious because about 6 months ago I said you should probably burn a first rounder on a right tackle because you have Trey Pipkins there. But I mean, that's the Duke Manyweather magic, man.
Yeah.
Like he went out of his way, and Pipkins as well. Obviously, it's not just a Duke Manyweather thing. Pipkins, Joshua Kelly, they really did a phenomenal job, you know, changing their offseason schedules, routines, whatever, and making themselves irreplaceable.
Yeah, the Trey Pipkins thing is it's a big L for me. I was not happy about them kind of walking into the season with Trey Pipkins as the potential starter, and he's earned every right to be the guy going forward. I thought that he's been fantastic in the games when he's been healthy from start to finish. So big shout out there. I want to talk next about just the way that this Justin Herbert has played and what he's able to do lately. I think for me, like, being a franchise quarterback means so many different things, but part of it is also like things not going well, and yet you're still able to produce in crucial moments, right? Like, that's something that I always admired about Philip Rivers so highly, is that, you know, he could come in and like, I think of like the Mexico City game in Kansas City, or against Kansas City, where he had like 3 interceptions in that game. But, you know, he went down in the fourth quarter, and, you know, he led a touchdown drive to tie it up, and then he gave the team a chance to win at the very end as well. And having that short-term memory, if you will, is such a crucial aspect of playing the quarterback position. And I think we forget sometimes that Justin Herbert's still in his third year. Like, he still has a lot of things to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And how many other young quarterbacks we can see around the league throw that interception to Kevin Byard and just like, okay, game's
Yeah.
over. Like, I'm going to shut down and this is it. But Herbert comes right back and has a fantastic drive to obviously win the game for the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't crazy about the way that the team approached that second to last drive when they got the ball back with 4 minutes left. Again, that's kind of a Joe Lombardi thing for me. But Justin Herbert in that situation, he has that that play action, or not that play action pass, the whole shot to Mike Williams. And then he has the rollout, obviously, to Mike Williams again, which
Mm-hmm.
one of the most insane throws you'll see on a week-to-week basis. But,
Mm-hmm.
Herbert being calm and collected, playing so clutch in that moment, I thought was super impressive this week.
That throw is better on replay, honestly, than in person. I mean, it was great. Don't get me wrong, but there's something about that sideline angle and just the way that ball throws on a rope. Mike Williams, the thwack that it makes when it hits him on the pads, like it's so great. He, I don't know what it is with Herbert, but he just, like you said, with like Phillip Rivers, he keeps going. There's no change in pulse, but it's very different than from his rookie year. I think that's one of the reasons that Staley says that, even though the numbers may not be there, that you think Herbert is a better quarterback than he's seen before, because, against against the Dolphins, watching that back, against the Bills, against the Patriots, teams that gave him, some difficulties, you could really see that there was kind of like this, not panic, because he was excellent under pressure over the entire season, but maybe just forcing things a bit, not be able to get that touchdown, get that game-winning drive. Although, you're not getting a game-winning drive when you're down 52-0 against the Patriots, but still, like you can just tell that he has this, like, it's a 60-minute game. And even Corey Linsley said it. Defense is playing well, and I always believe that we're going to have a chance. And they've shown that. They have the kicker, they have the quarterback. If they need it, they've got Mike Williams for that one play, the drive before for the touchdown. They had Keenan Allen on the 31-yard play. Like, they do have the guys to do it, and Herbert's the guy who can pull the trigger and make it happen. It's crazy that Herbert can legitimately do this consistently, but we can't put this together for several drives because it's just the dynamics of what is called, or maybe it is this exact same, but Herbert takes, those extra risks. It's phenomenal watching him. It wasn't a great game overall from him by any means, but I mean, in the kind of the same way that, we felt pretty awful about watching Patrick Mahomes the minute and a half left the last time I was there, getting to go this time and see a field goal, 48 seconds, Justin Herbert. I mean, everyone looked at each other and went, yeah, we're just going to throw it to Mike Williams, right? And at some point, like, it went to Mike Williams, and they got up and they threw a touchdown, or they kicked a field goal. I mean, it's awesome having that guy as his quarterback. I mean, I forget who it was in the chat here who said they've never had another quarterback other than Herbert as their quarterback, which is cool. That means this is a new fan, Jake. That's awesome. But we had that with Phillip Rivers, and to go from a guy like that, he'll fight to the end, to someone like Justin Herbert, who definitely will fight to the end, is awesome.
Yeah, and I think that is a skill that you learn in the NFL. I think these young quarterbacks have to come in and be able to have these successful drives and positively, and having Cameron Dicker be able to come in and hit that field goal, and a typical Chargers team, like maybe from the past, like has that big explosive pass, and then they have the delay of game, and then the kicker misses the field goal, right? Like, how many times did we see that as younger men back in the day? So being able to trust the kicker, I think, is huge. So Justin Herbert just is able to, again, like, when they actually need to go and score, the offense just flows so differently because they're letting Herbert go out there and make these plays. They're doing play action, they're letting him kind of sling it around, and that's what they have to do on a quarter basis, and they're just not doing it. So I understand why people are obviously frustrated with the offense. I am as well. I've been researching offensive coordinator names for the past week, and it's time for a change. Obviously, not at this exact moment, but the way that Herbert can play, you just need something else. Like, you just have to have a guy who can help get the offense to that next gear, like we are seeing in some of these other areas around the league. So. I thought, again, Herbert played fantastic in the first quarter, fantastic in the fourth quarter, had his best when they needed him to. And obviously, that 2-minute drive is just so important to this season. And obviously, helped them that much more.
Yep. Another game winner. I don't know how many we're at this point, but I saw Emmanuel Acho, which apparently we're all blocking him now. I guess that's
Yes,
the new
please do
trend.
that.
But yeah, I saw that Herbert throws one interception and it's like, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to say anything, but and of course he goes out 30 minutes later and leads them on a game-winning drive.
Yeah.
Of course.
It's so petty to like cut up the video or whatever, or download the video and then be like, oh, I can't say anything, but here's this interception from Justin Herbert. It's like,
Yeah,
we all know what you're saying, even though you're not saying it, my guy.
Yeah. I mean, again, once every 100 pass attempts. I don't under math, I guess.
All right. Tyler, anything else about the Chargers offense you want to mention? I know we've been a little bit longer tonight than I thought we would be with just the two of us, but anything else you want to bring up here about the offense?
One, that's what she said. Two, no, I don't think there's anything else I have to add.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Louise, for reminding me. You jackasses in the stands. Okay. I was told, and we're gonna go. Oh, Mike, after Mike Williams catches a pass, right? So I'm like, okay, my dad, love him, Raiders fan. I'm like, Dad, Mike Williams when he catches number 81.
This is gonna be awesome, Dad.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be sick. When he catches a pass, we're gonna go. Have you seen Finding Nemo? Yeah, the seagulls. We're gonna do that. Okay, Mike Williams catches his first pass, and I'm like, we're ready to go. Mike. It's just me and him. Thousands of people around us. It's just me going, Mike, like an idiot. Screw you guys. I am never trusting you again. I hate all of you.
Everybody was just looking at you like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, I'm around a bunch of Chargers fans. We're good. Like, I'm pretty sure we all saw this on social media. Like, everyone got this. I retweeted it 3 different times this week. Like, we're gonna have a couple other people around us. Nope, just me and my Raiders fan dad. Mike, like a complete jackass.
Shout out to Papa Shoot for being a good sport with that. You're just like, all right, let's do it. I did, for what it's worth, I did see other people saying the same thing, that like in their section they were doing it, and then like nobody else in that section was doing it. So, I saw that the PA announcer was mentioning that they were gonna like do it and have some fun, and sounds like nothing happened in that regard.
It was just me. It felt like it was just me and 65,000 people looking at me. Just shut up, you're an idiot.
I love it. That's hilarious. I wish I were there. I would have done it with you.
Thank you.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll wrap this conversation up today, talking about the Chargers playoff hopes and chances. We'll address the JC Jackson situation on another show. Hopefully we can get some more information there and on a later episode. So because of what happened last weekend, Chargers got all the help that they needed. Literally everything that they needed to have happen did happen. Dolphins lost, Jets lost, Patriots lost. The Chargers now currently sit in the 6th spot in the AFC and have, depending on which model you look at, whether that's ESPN FPI or 538 or New York Times, it's generally above 80% chance to make the playoffs. Sitting at 8-6, they have the easiest schedule of any team remaining in the AFC playoff hunt. So we're obviously a little cautious, especially because the Chargers were in this exact same situation last year, sitting at 8-6, ready, 80% playoff chance. But how are you feeling in terms of vibes in the Chargers making the playoffs right now?
I'm feeling like a guy with a ton of confidence who has a ghost behind him. Like that's really what it feels like. I feel like there's a skeleton in my closet. There's a ghost. There's a spirit. There's something behind me because, we try to be objective and understand what's going on. And looking ahead, there's no reason the Chargers should lose any of these next 3 games. And heck, they might even be able to lose one and still get into the postseason. But boy, we've been here before. Like I said, we've seen Rex Burkhead go off against the Chargers. It literally is any given Sunday. We just saw the Texans take the Chiefs to overtime. We just saw these Colts, take it to the Eagles, and they took it to the Vikings. I guess the Vikings are more fraudulent. But still, it's any given Sunday, and it's the Chargers, and they've got 3 games to go to not screw it up. I believe in the talent of this team. I believe in Justin Herbert. I believe in the players. I don't know about the coaches. I do believe in these players. I think we'll be fine for the postseason. I am starting to think about their road to probably Cincinnati and then maybe Kansas City after that. I've been already talking about it with people. I would love to go if I could. But yeah, 98% of me feels really good about this. The 2% of me is because I've been a Chargers fan.
I feel that. The ghost sitting behind you of past seasons is totally understandable. The people are I think kind of underestimating the Colts team this week because of everything that they've been through, and obviously, hiring Jeff Saturday and things like that. They still have a lot of good football players, right?
They do.
I mean, this is the same roster for the most part that led the league in Pro Bowlers last year. Obviously, a lot of their guys are injured, but they still have DeForest Buckner, and they still have Grover Stewart, and they still have all these, Stephon Gilmore's playing some good football this year, and Michael Pittman's been good for them. Quentin Nelson's still on the team, so they were up 33-0 against the Vikings, and I know they lost. But getting up 33-0 is a fucking hard thing to do in the NFL. Like, that's just not something that happens. So, the Colts are somebody that I think it's not going to be an easy game. I think the Chargers should win. I'm going to pick them to win. But it's a harder game than I think people will give them credit for.
Yeah.
Indianapolis is a super tough place to play. Super underrated home field advantage for that team. So that being said, the Chargers do have a playoff clinching scenario already for this week, which is wild. Crazy to me. A lot of other stuff would have to happen, but if the Chargers win and the Raiders lose or tie, the Jets lose and the Patriots lose, the Chargers would clinch a playoff spot this weekend, which is crazy considering where we were insane. At, a month ago with this team. So I don't think that's gonna happen. Like, I don't know, like the Jets play the Jaguars on Thursday Night Football. Theoretically, that's a game that the Jets should win at home, on a short week. But this is a crazy spot for this team to be in. If they win their next two games, they could rest starters against the Broncos in Mile High. I don't think that is probably what I would do, but I do feel pretty confident that this team makes the playoffs. You just have to win two of your next three. None of these three teams are exactly great teams. A lot of injuries, with these three teams that they're playing. But I do think the way that this defense is playing has really kind of sparked some optimism with me about the way that they're kind of handling their business. So it's going to be difficult. The Chargers are not a team that's going to come in here and blow these three teams out. But I feel good about their chances of winning two of the next three and making the playoffs. Yeah,
as do I. It's a combination of the Chargers obviously winning these past two games, and then the AFC just thank you, Chandler Jones for stiff arming Mac Jones.
The craziest thing I've ever seen, man.
Oh yeah, no, it was wild because there's actually my dad is filming the end of our game, the Chargers game, and then he turns to me to film my reaction to the very end of the game, and I turn to him and say, "Oh my God, Dad, the Raiders won!" And so we're like celebrating at the exact same time because both of our teams won. That was one of the craziest ends to a game. Like, I've never seen that. Like, everyone's, a lot of people say, "Oh, I've never seen that." I've literally never seen that before. I can't believe that happened. And boy, Chandler Jones grabbed that football, turned around, saw Mac Jones, and thought, "Oh, this is legal now."
Yeah,
just buried him in the turf.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never seen, like, there are times, right, where it's like a losing team will try and do these, backward pass plays and try and create something, but that was a tie game. The Patriots could have just gone down and they would have played in overtime.
Oh yeah,
crazy situation. So the Chargers obviously in a great spot here. I think for me, like the way that they beat these two teams, I started the show with this, I'm going to end it with this. I would have felt much differently obviously if they had lost or if they had not been able to beat these two teams, but going back-to-back weeks against the Dolphins and the Titans and coming out 2-0, I think should inspire a lot of confidence for this team because that's not something really any of us kind of expected. So last year at this time they were 8-6, but they hadn't really beaten anybody good in quite some time heading into that stretch. I mean, they had just beaten the Giants and everything was kind of rosy at that point, and COVID certainly had a part to play in that, in the way the last season ended too. But beating these two teams, I think, gave me a lot of confidence in their chances of winning two of the next three and getting to 10 wins, which would be huge, and obviously making the playoffs for the first time in Brandon Staley's tenure.
they're going to win these next 3 games, but I really just want to fast forward to past that because I don't want to. I know I'm going to hate watching these 3 games. Like they're going to win. I'm going to hate watching them because it's going to come down to the wire every single time.
Yeah. Baker Mayfield's going to do some, the Chargers and Rams game is just going to be so weird. And I'm not ready for that. I'm going to be there for that game.
Yeah.
But it's just going to get super weird at some moment because it's 2 weird teams, 2 teams who are running a lot of the same concepts. So that game is going to get super weird. But ultimately, I do feel confident, like I said, with this team.
Yep.
All right. That's a good place to end it. So thanks to everybody for tuning in tonight. The chat has been fun. As always, if you are listening to this conversation, make sure to leave us a rating or review. Really appreciate that as well. Shout out to the Fojoko family again for sending the gift. I don't know if you want to open it real quick, but we'll wrap up the show with the unpacking of the gift. Sorry, Tyler, but
won't come undone. Hold on. Now I feel like I'm destroying their gift on air.
Sorry, Tyler. I should have led with that one. That's my mistake.
No, that's fine. They're all gonna sit here and watch us do this. They watch us do dumber things anyway. So
I mean, we talked about funeral potatoes and
Okay, it's not Legos. It is. Well, I'll read the card. Mele Kalikimaka, and thank you for being awesome. Bolt up from Linda Fajoko. That's his mother. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We have ourselves the greatest collection of Wanderlust, sweet and savory.
Let's go.
Looks like macadamia nuts.
Let's go.
We have, the good stuff. We have honey roasted, Maui onion and garlic, Hawaiian sea salt, milk chocolate, and dark chocolate. Well, this is what it looks like, Steven. I'm going to be eating them, and hope you enjoy the package of the.
Hey man, you got to mail me some or something.
No. Which one do you? You can have the dark chocolate ones, and not my Janae likes the dark chocolate ones. We'll save some for you. Yeah, we got some macadamia nuts. If y'all ain't never been to Hawaii and get some chocolate covered macadamia nuts, they're the best. So
yeah,
I can't wait to eat these.
Phoenix Flame says the onion and garlic ones are so good. I agree with that. Absolutely.
That sounds so good. I've never had those before. Chocolate, yeah, but never. Anyway, so thank you very much. I'm gonna take like a little, picture for later. Thanks.
Nice.
Okay, cool.
All right. Appreciate it, Fohogo family. Appreciate all you guys tuning in. We'll see you guys later in the week for our preview show of the Colts game. Obviously, upcoming schedule being a little bit different with Christmas happening this weekend as well. But we'll see you guys later.